Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'd like to talk about 9 things I'd like to see in the next Monster Hunter game. Seeing as I've put a few hours into World, and Iceborne, and Rise, and Sunbreak, and then back to World, I have a few ideas I'd like to suggest, and hopefully if you've got ideas of your own, please put them down in the comments below. So, let's get straight into it. When I started with World, I really enjoyed the Palico creation process. You create your own Palico and you make him to be who you want him to be. Along the lines, you get different skills, different upgrades for that Palico, and you keep with him all through the journey. Then you get to Rise and you get to higher Palicos. So you might start off with one Palico and you think, okay, this is it, this is going to be the guy who's going to go with me all through the journey. And then you have to get a different Palico because maybe you want a healing Palico or attack Palico or a support Palico. And all of a sudden, your first Palico just becomes something put to the side. And let's face it, if you're like me, my first Palico was crap. Later down the line, obviously, in Sunbreak, they brought new add-ons where you could swap skills and add skills, but the core aspects of your Palico would remain the same. He would always be a helper or a supporter or a fighter Palico, but he couldn't be all. And this kind of got me away from the Palicos. It was just an additional thing to be brought along with you on the hunt. I would like him to go back to the World version where you have your Palico and he could be whatever you want him to be. I'm running a playthrough now with a Palico called Coach, and he is my dude. I mean, if I need some words of encouragement, I would equip him with the coral trumpet thingy, get some buffs. If I'm broke, I need some money, I'll go, yeah, Coach, get some plunder baids, go get some money. And he could do everything you want him to. But that being said, I really do like the Palamutes in Rise. I think they could implement something similar into World, but make that more of an actual fighter style addition to it. So let the Palamute be someone who augments what you do. For example, I've played with the Hunting Horn, and you cannot cut anything with the Hunting Horn. But say you equip the Palamute with a blade, they could do sever type damage, and then they can help you with cottontails. Or if you're a blade master, you could equip your Palamute with a hammer, and they could get the chaos for you. So just something that's a little bit different to the actual Palicos. Also, the riding of the Palamutes is fun, and you can have that play out between the two personalities. The Palico is always the jovial, relaxed one, and the Palamute is the serious, let's get down to business and sort it out, kind of character. I think that would work really well in 6. Meal vouchers. I think this is a bit more straightforward. Towards the end of World, you got your voucher. I don't think there's any much need to complicate it. I think it's just one of those things that it makes you work hard for. You do the event quests, you get your meal vouchers, and your bonus is you get max health, and you're good to go. Now, this point goes in line with the previous one. In World, you would just get whatever you need or whatever you need to get done, and then boom, you're straight into the mission and you go hunting. You could choose to explore, which a lot of people did do, but something I didn't enjoy in Rise was you had to search for spirit bugs. There is no way you're starting your mission flat out with max health and max stamina. You always had to go running around for spirit bugs, and it felt a bit strange. I mean, you're a hunter and you should prepare. Preparing is one of the big deals of being a hunter. So why go for a hunt when you're not at your max, strength, why you're not at full health and full stamina? It took about, 1 minute, 2 minutes into your hunt, just running around looking for the spirit beds. I'm not a big fan of that. But going back to World, if you wanted additional help, in your hunt, you could then go for the Gajalakas or the Tail Raiders, whichever one you want to unlock. And they are awesome. It's not just a free gift, you don't just get them off the bat, but you work towards it. You go through the quest line, you unlock them, and if you want to get the best out of them, you invest in them. So it's a bit of a choice. So if you want to be a fully solo hunter, you can go about it your way and never bother with them. And if you want to really get as much out of your hunt as possible, then you go for all these guys, and it's so much fun. But the bottom line is, when you prepare for a mission, let's go in guns blazing. Let's not go in, half health or 50 or 70% health and having to search for things, just running around for the sake of it. I think Rise wanted to get us to explore the area a bit more, but I think World did it a little bit better in my opinion. I think Rise did a few things good, but again, World does this a little bit better for me. With the investigations, I did not like the idea of locking augments to certain monsters, and you have to grind and grind and grind that one monster just to unlock what you need. I mean, it was a trudge for me, and I think it was not fun. I really do prefer the actual investigations, because, well, you're a hunter and you do investigations, you get to collect tracts, and you actually track down these monsters that you actually need to investigate, and then depending on what you unlock, you could have bonuses. So you can get 5 gold bonuses where you can unlock different gems or whatever you need, and it was a lot of fun that way. If you've got a 3 reward quest, you go, okay, I don't need that. You've got a 5, yes, you're balling, especially when you get to the purple investigations. Those are the really fun ones, as opposed to where you have the gold, bronze and silver ones. So I think World's version of investigations were better. The one in Rise, I'm not a big fan at all. Now here we are going to the tricky bits. Slinger versus the Sigbines. For me personally, maybe I'm just, all based on nostalgia here, I think the Slinger just looks better with a hunter. It fits with the style. You need it to grapple onto things, to climb walls, monsters, and if you want to have those drakes, those birds fly you from here to there, it all makes sense. Now, obviously, anyone can make, a note and say, well, the Sigbines or spider webs are super strong and all that wonderful things, but some part of me just feels it's a bit lightweight. Maybe that's the point, but this is just an aesthetic point of view. But on a practical sense of things, I do like everything they did with the Slinger burst, the different ammo types, where you could make one Slinger ammo explode. You have the dragon ammo to remove, the Elder Dragon's effects. You've got the crystal burst. All those different ammo types, made you change your fight a little bit, going for bomb or explosive ammos with piercing ammos. They did different things. I think that was so much fun to do, as opposed to the Sigbines. And then with the Sigbines came in loads of invincibility frames, hyper armor. I mean, one of the things I loved in the world was roars. You know how good you are when you can roll through monster roars, or you just face tank it with a shield. But in Rise, you just hyper armor through everything. There is no need to, gem in 7 levels of earplugs anymore. There is no need to get the Bazooki's ammo anymore. It's just like, well, why do I need to? I would just whip my way all through and ignore every single thing. So I think the Slinger armor just felt a little bit better with the entire feel of the Monster Hunter. This aspect has got me re-recording this so many times. So with the skills and enemy scaling, I know the dev team have put in so much work into every single monster, from the low threat level monsters to the high level threat monsters. But ask yourself this: when last did you want to fight a Kalioku or a Baggy, in the end game? There is a reason why they all just drop off and no one has a reason to fight them. I think these should be looked into a bit more. I think they should have an incentive to fighting this level monsters, and that way it gives a bit more life into the game instead of recycling the same monsters for high level content. And maybe bring in different threat levels for them, say an evolution or something. But with that being said, I would like them to manage the HP and damage for the monsters in general. I think they got really spongy and they hit really hard, and it wasn't as much fun as I would like, in my opinion. I think I prefer the world being a little bit slower, but when it gets too fast, then it kind of feels really rushed. I think they should focus more on the mechanics of the fight instead of just, making it move faster and do more damage and have higher HP. I'll give you an example. Nergigante, he's an amazing fight. I love his fight so much. My best monster in all the Monster Hunter games. I've only played 2. His mechanics are quite straightforward. You break the spikes, he topples over. You don't break the spikes, he screws you over. Very straightforward. It's not too complicated. But where they're just zipping around this place and you can't get to hit them and they do so much damage, I think it doesn't feel like you're going to hunt a monster, it just feels like pain. In Rise, something I realized was I believe they lost the balance of the game from the get-go. So I'm thinking, okay, from the perspective of the developers, they go, okay, we want to give them silk binds, something for them to zip around. A monster hits them, they go on the floor, silk bind, they zip off, and they're good to go. Okay, so they're a lot faster. So what do we need to do? We need to make the monsters faster. Okay, now we've both upped the pace of the players and the monsters. We like the Palicos and we like the Palamutes. Let's add them into the game. Okay, now the player side deals way more damage than the monster. Okay, let's up the damage of the monster and the HP. Okay, you see where I'm coming with this. It doesn't stop there though. And then go, okay, we've overshot the damage of the monsters. Let's add in the companions. Let's add 2 companions. Oh wait, now it's too unbalanced to the side of the player. Then let's make even more power. And then it just, it goes out of control. I think they need to really all back in and make it a lot more controlled. So that way there's a good balance rather than just hiking everything way too high and making fights feel like a trudge. One way they can do this is with the high level gear. So if the monsters are not scaling too high, we don't need a lot of damage buffs in our gear. We don't need more skills that increase crit chances and increase damage done and all of these kind of things. Some are good. I'm not saying all are bad. Some are good. But with all high level gear, one thing you can do is, one, to create, say, a threat level 3 monster, you might need threat level 1 parts for it. Again, giving us a reason to go back to the low level monsters. And 2, they should have a combination of skills. Now imagine if you had to go fight Teostra, for example, but then Teostra gloves comes with, included with what it normally comes with, it comes with some level of Mind Eye, or Affinity Sliding, or Carving Master, or Wall Runner, any of these low level skills which no one ever really uses. Imagine if each and every one of these high level monsters, they came with it. So rather than just giving us more damage and more ways to deal more damage, give us more quality of life stuff. So we're not really doing that much damage, which means you don't need to scale the monsters way higher. We are just a bit more adept at fighting, and it's a lot more fun. Imagine you in the end game, you've got Wall Runner on in your set, which you weren't planning on for, but it helps you with scaling those mountains like you did in Rise. Or you have the Carving Master, you get 1 extra carve. It's a really, really nice feeling when you have these little skills, and it also gives usefulness to all these skills that no one uses. When last did you go, what, I need to jam in some Carving Master, or what, hey, I could do with some Affinity Sliding. Imagine if all these skills came for free in your set, because you're hunting high level monsters and it works in line with the low level monsters, and you just put it all together and you've got a good balance, in my opinion, for the enemy scaling and skills. In addition with the enemy scaling and skills and the general gameplay of fights, I think something that could be looked into are the weapons. Again, this is something I think World and Rise fail at. So much has been put into these weapons, and yet only 1 or 2 become meta. The others are just not used. I think they should have a scaling with all the weapons. Yes, you'd have some low level weapons from low level monsters, but everything within its rarity should perform reasonably similar. So you could have a weapon with more defense but less damage, more elements but less damage, more crit but less damage, less crit, higher damage. Just something in a way where not one weapon becomes the meta, where all of it works together and you get to pick and choose, you get to enjoy all the weapons. I might favor crit and not favor something on an element point of view, so I think they could make this a little bit better. Now, speaking of elements, I think they should make elements into a buff and negation system. So we have multiple monsters that are fire-based monsters. So let's, example would be Rathalos, Anjanath, and Teostra, for example. So what they could do with this is make some weapons be elemental. So Rathalos, for example, would be fire element, high element damage. But then make Anjanath no element, but high fire resistance. So you could essentially take an Anjanath weapon to fight Teostra, because Anjanath is a fire monster. He would be immune or would have some defense against fire, so that would be useful. You could do the same with ice, you could do the same with the other weapons, and that way each weapon can be scaled quite well. So if you're afraid of Teostra, you don't like his fire aura, you pick an Anjanath weapon and you go defensive. But if you're ready to go, I can do it with the aura, I can do it with the fire, I would go full attack. I'll get an ice weapon, say from Legiana or something. These kind of things would make a lot more weapons more viable and way more fun for different builds. Okay, with this, you've watched videos about the hunting horn. I'm an old fogey, so just change it back. I'm not a big fan of the hunting horn in Rise. I prefer the version in World, so yeah. But that being said, I do like one change that came in Rise, which is no more attack up large. I hated it in World. It made very few weapons viable. If you didn't have the XL song, then there's no point. Are you even a hunting horn without the XL song? There are so many hunting horns I wanted to try, but were not viable because of the lack of damage. So take away the attack up large and just leave it small to medium, and then work more on the different aspects of the hunting horn. The different songs it could have and how they work. Something that you could do to give the hunting horn a bit more personality is to make it a fatigue weapon. We all know the hammer is the king of chaos, but the hunting horn is struggling somewhere. Give it some damage and put a lot of exhaust on it, so at least you've got a CC weapon. You might not do as much damage as the hammer, or you could even do as much damage as the hammer, but rather than getting so many KOs, you get a lot of fatigue, and I think that is a much better gameplay style for the hunting horn, as opposed to trying to fight for the KO king role with the hammer. I'm not saying it can't do KOs, but let its thing be a bit more CC instead of just trying to be a hammer on a longer stick. Here we are at the last section. If you have been keeping up with everything up until this point and you've been watching and listening, thank you so much for putting up with my audio. I really do appreciate it. So let's make this quick. So with guarding weapons, I found that to be a bit strange that you'd have a weapon with a shield and still need to add a lot of guard into it. I think in general most skills are broken down into, I'll say, 5 aspects. You've got your attack based skills, attack up, crit boost, crit chance, things like that. You've got your defense stuff like defense up, divine protection. You've got your weapon based mechanics like sonorous for the hunting horn, and your quality of life skills like quick sheath, evade extender. You get the point. And then lastly, the ones no one really uses to an extent, like affinity sliding and so on and so forth. Well, with most weapons you need to have, for a fully functioning weapon, I'd say 2 out of skill sets. You'd want to have your attack, which could fit in with no issues, your mechanics based skills, which again shouldn't be an issue, and some quality of life. But with the charge blade, you had to put in your attack based skills for the blade section. You had to put in your mechanic based stuff like focus and artillery for the actual files, and then you had to put in your defensive section for the guarding, guard up, and then you have no space for quality of life. And it got me asking myself, when the developers made this weapon, was it made to be incomplete so you get to pick and choose, so you can go all out attack? So for the spinning axe or the pizza cutter, whichever way you want to call it, or you get to choose more of the mechanic based side, which is artillery. I'm not sure, so you veterans out there, let me know, put a comment down below, what is the charge blade meant to be? I would prefer it if guarding weapons didn't have to rely so much on the defensive side of things, so guard was something that came innate with the weapon to a certain extent. Now, I've got a few changes in here, but bear with me. As a skill, guard's job is to decrease impact and stamina up to 50%, and guard up, quite bluntly, is to guard against unblockable attacks. Well, what if we change that a little bit? So let's consider these 5 aspects of guarding. 1. Chip damage, knockback, stamina, elemental defense, and weapon degradation, so the amount of damage you take to your weapon. I would also like to give a shout out to KO Slayer, who did a wonderful post on guarding and blocking. His link is below in the description for you to read up on that. So let's make this simple. God skill, instead of just reducing impact of attacks and stamina, why don't we say for each level of God you get 5% reduced chip damage and 10% reduced stamina usage. So that would be the same for God 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and the God up skill, you get 1 level of knockback resistance, 7% stamina usage, 7% less stamina usage, I would say, 10% elemental defense, and 20% weapon degradation. So, if we look at both skills separately, God skill would be your ability to defend yourself against damage, while God up would be a significant level above that. It doesn't really stop you so much from taking damage because it doesn't have any of the chip damage negation, but what it does is the skill of the hunter to actually react to being hit. So you don't, somehow you can see it like you're able to deal with the attacks a bit better with the knockback resistance, and because you're using a shield, you've got elemental resistance and things like that. Now, how would this all look like on the weapons? I think the shields are broken down into 3 different types. You've got your small shield, which would be like the SNS. You've got your medium shields, which would be like the charge blade and the heavy bow gun. And your large shield would be the lance and the gun lance. So, if we look at these numbers on screen now, you've got the shield, which would have a base 65% chip damage negation, 20% stamina usage, and the low level of the knockback. Okay, if you have a medium shield, you would have 75% chip damage. You'd have 40% damage negation, stamina reduction, and low level of the knockback. And then the large shield would be 80%, 50%, and then 1 level of guard up. So that level of guard up would be 1 level of the knockback, with 7% stamina usage, 10% elemental defense, and then 20% weapon degradation. And then finally, the charge blade would then have, with the charge shield, 5% chip damage reduction and 10% stamina usage reduction. And if you then guard point with the charge blade, you then get 1 of the guard up skills. So what this does is it frees up anyone who's using a shield to explore other options. And again, if you're using a big hefty shield, you shouldn't be getting knocked back around, or you shouldn't be getting so much chip damage. So by default, gun lance users and lance users don't need to put in 5 levels of guard. You could put in 2 levels of guard and 1 level of guard up, and you're good to go, and then you can focus on other things. Same with a charge blade, you can put in 3 levels and 2 guard up, or 1 guard up if you are really good at your guard points. This way it makes using the guard weapon so much better, and then you can focus on, putting up those attack gems for your blade damage or crit damages. This is just my opinion, but I would like to hear from you guys. Do you think this is far-fetched? Do you think this is overpowered? Too weak? Let me know what you think regarding this guard changes. So there we are, and thank you so much for listening. These are my 9 points I'd like to see in the next Monster Hunter game. I really do love the franchise, and I'd like to see it do way more, and so we can enjoy it all the better. If you think my ideas, especially regarding guard, is a good idea, let me know. If you think it's a bad idea, sure, let me know. So let me know what you would change, or if you think it's perfect the way it is, or do you think the charge blade and the heavy shield weapons should just suck it up and go, that's what it is. Let me know. I do apologize again for the audio. Hopefully we get better with time. Thank you so much. I'd like to see you guys on the next video if you're available. Thank you, and goodbye.